Hey guys, so a couple of things for this week. I know I didn't have a video up last class because I was having technical difficulties, and I have a loaner laptop now, so I can talk you guys through a little bit of what we've been doing this week. I'm gonna use, I'm gonna use 8th period's class because they have everything in it. So if you guys go to classwork, there's the week at a glance slides. You're going to see a new material post that says regrade request form. You had attendance from Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday. For Monday, Tuesday, you guys had some slides that were sort of an introduction, not really an introduction because we've talked about these things before, but a little bit of a reintroduction to persuasion and argument. And looking at the attendance assignment from Monday and Tuesday, most of you guys understood what the basics of the assignment was, like what you needed to do, so that's good. So clicking on that just to recap. So we're switching gears, obviously, from our lit books at this point. And so the way that the slides are set up, you've got your first slide that tells you what it is. You have a task card slide that is kind of letting you know where your thinking is going. For the third slide here in this introduction part, you should have looked at the infographic that was attached to this image that talks about kind of the differences between argument and persuasion, how they're different. The fourth slide had another infographic to look at. They were kind of similar, but they had some different things that were important for you to notice. And then in these two boxes, you should have focused in on what stood out most about persuasion specifically to you, and then what stood out most to you about argument. So looking at the difference between persuasion, what stood out to you most about the elements of persuasion, what stood out to you most about elements of argument. When you got to slide 7, you watched the YouTube video that talked about the art of rhetoric and using persuasive techniques. And this YouTube video gave a lot of different examples of how these techniques are used in advertising. And at the end of the day, the most important thing to realize is that logos, at the end of the day, assuming you've got an intelligent audience, logos is going to be the strongest watertight sort of persuasive appeal that you could use within your persuasion writing or within your argument writing. So slide 8 is going to ask you, specifically after watching this video, how you in your own words could describe what ethos is. And then the second box is going to ask if you could provide an example of something from the video that showed ethos. The question 4 is going to ask for you to describe in your own words the pathos persuasive appeal, and then to provide another example from the video in the second box. And then we get to the last slide. It's looking at how you describe logos in your own words, and then one example from the video that showed that. Okay, and then you review about really what persuasion is and its main focus, and then what the difference is with argument. And then you're finished. So the stop slide will let you know to review and make sure you did the questions that you needed to answer. And then you can go back into classroom and turn it in. So at this point, you should have already done this, but I just wanted to go over it again because I didn't post a video on Monday and Tuesday. So hopefully those directions are helpful. So for Wednesday, Thursday, this is where you guys are putting the information that you kind of were reintroduced to on Monday and Tuesday. You're putting this into practice for Wednesday, Thursday class. Okay, so you're going to go to the practice slides, and this is where you're applying some of this stuff. So the second slide is going to let you know you're reviewing again the differences, and then you're applying this. So you've got a handful. So slide 44 is slide 4. So you're going to apply some of this information to an article that you're going to read. So slide 3 is going to review again the big differences between persuasion and argument. When you get to slide 4, there is a link to an article. Specifically, as you read, you need to make sure that you're thinking about the persuasive appeals. If you need to go back to the earlier introduction slide from last class, you can to help you. And then you need to really keep in mind the differences between persuasion and argument. So keep all of that at the forefront of your mind. You're going to read this article. This article is from the Associated Press, also known as AP News. It's a website that has lots of different staff members that put stuff together. They find articles and then they kind of adapt it more for education. And so it's been slightly modified for you guys a little bit by this group called Newsella. But the article is called Afghani Artist Puts Beautiful Images on Kabul's Ugly Walls of War. And so you're going to be looking at kind of this aspect of the street artists that are kind of beautifying this city in Afghanistan, which is really crazy. So it's a handful of pages long. It's not too overwhelming. Just read through it and be considering the parts where they're maybe more persuasive than argumentative and vice versa. When you get to slide 5, it's going to ask you to summarize the article. So we haven't practiced summary too much in the last handful of weeks, so we're kind of falling back on that again. So summarize what the article was about. So tell me in 4 to 6 sentences, the title of the article, who's the author, what's the main idea of the article, and then what are some of the highlight points that they mention. So if you go past 6 sentences, it's no longer a summary anymore. Then you're giving me way too much of a play-by-play. But think of this as, if I've never read the article before, could you tell me the title and the author and what the big highlights of this article are mainly about in 4 to 6 sentences? Okay, when you get to the next question, it's going to ask which part of the article showed elements of ethos and or pathos. So in other words, you can give me an example of like 2 examples where you saw ethos in this box and that box, or you could give me 2 examples of how you saw pathos, or you could give me one of each. It's whatever combination that you want. When you get to question 8, though, it wants you to find specifically 2 examples of logos. So you need to find 2 examples of logos. So find the example and explain how it used logos, and then find another example and explain how that used logos, because we're really going to be focusing more on logic than anything else, because argument specifically, which is the direction that we're moving in, really focuses in on like what makes a really good argument is one that is really grounded in logos. So we're going to focus on that just a little bit more. When you get to question 9, though, it is going to ask whether you believe this article is more persuasive or more argumentative. So again, go back and look at the big differences between persuasion and argument. And if you need to go back to the introduction slides from Monday, Tuesday, do that. But it wants you to decide whether it's really more persuasive. So do you have more pathos, ethos, and maybe a little bit of logos? Or is it more argumentative where you've got a lot more logos, you have a lot of claims with solid evidence and reasoning? Okay, whatever you decide, if you think it's more persuasive or you think it's more argumentative, state that, but you need to be able to back your idea up. So if you think it's more persuasive, you need to prove that to me. So explain it to me. If you think it's more argumentative, make sure you're explaining that to me as well. Okay, so back it up with your reasoning. When you're finished with that, the last slide is going to ask you to double check and make sure that you answer the questions that you need to. And then when you're finished, you can turn this in classroom and you're done for this week. Grades for this week are focused on the practice more than the introduction. The introduction was just making sure that you did what you needed to do. So you were understanding the basics of the videos and all of those things. This is applying your knowledge at this point. So we're kind of reviewing the persuasive appeals and reviewing again those aspects of argument. And so this is stuff that isn't entirely new to you guys. But the graded aspect for this week is really looking on, can you apply this now in practice with something pretty basic? So when you're finished with that, you'll turn it in. And then you're done for the learning for this week. A couple of things I do want to address before moving on is the regrade request form. I have gone over this in my videos before, but not many people are watching the videos, so people are missing this. So we'll see how many of you guys end up watching this video. But the regrade request form is if you have anything that needs regraded, it needs to be submitted in this form. You'll put your class period. You're going to put the name of the assignment that needs to be regraded. And if it's of your own creation, if it's a Google Doc that's your own, please upload it here. If it's something from Classroom that has been assigned in Classroom, I should know that. So that's fine. You don't need to upload anything or whatever. You don't need to link anything in. If there's anything else I need to know about that assignment, please let me know. I know that there are a handful of you guys that are very behind in assignments. Like you haven't done much since we started digital learning. And so for those people, you need to be submitting the regrade every time you get something done. So I can check those things off my list. Everything that you need to do is in Google Classroom. So we're not doing stuff in Goodreads anymore. We haven't been since we moved online. So for this whole entire 9 weeks, everything is in Google Classroom. The other thing I want you guys to do for your attendance for this class, for Wednesday and Thursday's class. So Wednesday people, yours is going to look exactly the same as Thursday's. You need to make sure that you summarize what you did for today, obviously, and then I want everybody to check in. And I already know what your grade is because I've been looking at you guys' grades practically nonstop for the last couple of days, trying to get things graded and updated with the new grades that went in that were due Thursday and Friday last week. So there are still things that I need to grade. You guys have some blanks in the grade book because it hasn't been graded yet, but it will go in. So I know what you guys' grades are, but I need to make sure that you know what your grade is because some of you guys have been MIA. So let me know what your grade is so I know that you know. And then submit and you'll be good for attendance. And that should be it for this week. If you have questions, please let me know, especially for those of you that are trying to get caught up. The other last thing, especially knowing that some people are catching up, people that are catching up that have essential questions to do or that need to finish navigating the story, don't turn your lit book in. Don't turn Audacity or Watership Down or whatever in to Miss Sterrett on Friday. There's a bucket that's located like a bin outside of Fulbright at the front doors or whatever that is available on Fridays, I believe from 9 or 10 o'clock until 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I posted it in an announcement, so double check the times on that. But the bin will be placed out every single Friday until the end of the year for you to turn your books back in. So if you have a pleasure read that has just been sitting around that you're done with, that needs to get turned in. But your lit book, especially if you are behind, don't turn that book in until you finish the stuff that you're behind on. For the most part, I think everybody has access to audiobooks or a PDF version of your book. Audacity is the exception to this. So if you accidentally turned your book in too quickly, please let me know, so I can help you find a PDF version of your book. If you are a person who is an Audacity person who turned their book in too quick and now you're regretting it, please let me know so we can figure out how to deal with you. I think that's it though. I think that's it. Let me know if you guys have questions. Hopefully more than a couple people are watching this, considering there are a few important things that were addressed here. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's it. The Google Hangout is up and going still, especially now that I've got a loaner. So if you need anything, you can pop into the Hangout. I'll have the Google Meet going up on Friday from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So if you need anything, you can pop in at any time. So I'll see you guys maybe on Friday.